Good evening, everyone. It is with great pleasure that we welcome you all here today for CLPR's Fireside Chat with Justice Indira Banerjee, former judge of the Supreme Court of India, to celebrate International Women's Day and 75 years of the Supreme Court. It is with great honor and privilege that we welcome Justice Indira Banerjee to grace this occasion. With an illustrious career spanning over 4 decades, Justice Banerjee has left an indelible mark on the Indian judiciary, earning immense respect for her wisdom, integrity, and commitment to justice. A first-generation lawyer, Justice Indira Banerjee embarked on her legal journey after completing her education at the Presidency College, Kolkata, and later earning her law degree from Calcutta University. She began practicing at the Calcutta High Court, where she specialized in civil, constitutional, and commercial litigation. Her sharp legal acumen and dedication to the profession soon earned her recognition, leading to her elevation as a judge of the Calcutta High Court in February 2002, the youngest woman judge to be appointed to the Calcutta High Court at the age of 45. She was then appointed to serve in the Delhi High Court, quickly followed by her appointment as the Chief Justice of Madras High Court in 2017, only the second woman to do so. In 2018, Justice Banerjee was elevated to the Supreme Court of India, becoming one of the few women to have served as a judge in the apex court. Her tenure at the Supreme Court was marked by her involvement in several pivotal cases that shaped the legal landscape of the country. Welcome, and I would like to hand over.
I was born in 1957. It was mentioned 24th September 1957 as the youngest of 3 sisters. That time, some so-called well-wishers would say, "Oh, 3 daughters, don't worry, next time you'll definitely get a son." And my mother would hit the roof and say, "No, I'm quite happy with my 3 daughters." And my mother always encouraged me to work. Her father was a doctor. And because her father was a doctor, she wanted me to become a doctor. But I used to run away from the biology classes when it came to dissecting frogs and all. So I took up humanities. I didn't have any intention of practicing law. I was thinking of taking up law as an optional subject for the competitive examination. I joined the law college, and within 3 or 4 months, I took the preliminary examination. And there was one very tricky question, and I thought I may not be able to make it through. I may not be able to clear the preliminary examination. So after the examinations were over, I was fooling around. I thought I'd take the exam the next year. I didn't have any intention of practicing law. I was thinking of taking up law as an optional subject for the competitive examination. I joined the law college, and within 3 or 4 months, I took the preliminary examination. And there was one very tricky question, and I thought I may not be able to make it through. I may not be able to clear the preliminary examination. So after the examinations were over, I was fooling around. I thought I'd take the exam the next year. And then I found I actually did get through in the preliminary. I would have qualified for the IAS. But one paper I managed to land up with 29. And that was the law second paper. So that changed the course of my life, because I thought I'd appear again the next year. I had the age, but the exams were coinciding with the law exam. And then my father told me, look, you've already wasted your time. You did your master, you took admission in your master's, you gave it up to join law. I think it is better you take your law seriously and finish it, because a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. A competitive examination is always an uncertainty. There was a very sensational case in the Calcutta High Court, which was being argued by Mr. Somnath Chatterjee. On the one side, he had been engaged on behalf of the state because it was a prestige issue for the state. And Shankar Das Banerjee was appearing on behalf of the public interest litigants. It was a case of abduction of two children who belonged to a family which belonged to a political party which was then in the opposition in West Bengal. And it was suspected that these children had been abducted by the political party, which was persons belonging to the political party which was in power. And maybe they had been murdered. So the Anando Bajar group of newspapers, Telegraph,
Yes.
they orchestrated a public interest litigation seeking transfer of investigation to the CBI. And that was being opposed by
the state.
Mr. Somnath Chatterjee, appearing on behalf of the state. Mr. Banerjee was asking for the transfer of investigation. Now, watching the proceedings in court, seeing the clash of the titans, Somnath Chatterjee with his sonorous voice and immense knowledge of law, and Shankar Das Banerjee, also a luminary of Calcutta High Court. That's when I decided that it may be a good idea to actually practice law. The initial days were tough. The toughest thing was to find a foothold. Any lawyer needs a foothold, needs an introduction, a chamber. If you are a first-generation lawyer, then you are introduced by the office you attend, or your senior's chamber. People come to brief your senior, they see you working and they start briefing you. And that was the biggest hurdle, because at least four seniors said that they didn't take women in their chamber. And there are other problems also for a first generation. Those who did take women, some of them would say the chamber is too crowded. Some would say we are too junior to take juniors. Some would say we are too senior to take such juniors. So finding a chamber was a big problem. She's from Loreto House, Presidency College. She wants to practice law. She can't find a chamber. So Mr. Pal said, I think your friend is not serious. I refuse to believe that she wouldn't get a chamber if what you say is right. That this is her
college and yes.
school, college, my marks. And then she said, will you take her in your chamber? So Mr. Pal said, I've become too senior now. I concentrate, I specialize in constitutional law. So she said, but she wants to practice constitutional law. And see, this is what everyone says. Why won't you take her? Someone will say I'm too senior. Someone else will say I'm too junior. Someone will say I won't take a woman. And then I joined Mr. Pal's chamber. Whether I was briefed or not, I got the opportunity to assist in important constitutional cases, because in most of the cases where the vagaries of statutes were under challenge, Mr. Pal used to appear. So being in his chamber was a perfect learning experience. But I got a lot of assistance actually from Mrs. Pal, Justice Ruma Pal. She was a lawyer then. She became a judge in 1990. I joined in 1985.
So you got to work with her as well?
Yes. I appeared with her in a case in Hyderabad. I used to get briefed in cases with her.
So
In fact, I was a bit apprehensive of my own senior. So whenever I had a problem, I used to go to Rumadi, as we called her, and she would help out. So if I went to Mr. Pal's chamber, it was a good thing he did. He said, look, Indira, the senior's chamber is not a nursery class. You have to watch the senior and you have to learn to pick up the work. Afterwards, he used to help. But if you went to ask him, but Justice Pal was always, she was not Justice Pal then, she was Mrs. Pal. Always very helpful. Maybe I would not have joined, and I would not have accepted judgeship if my father had been alive. But I was very close to my father, and my father wanted me to be a judge. In fact, when he used to tell me, I used to say I earn more than what a judge earns. And my father would say, money is not everything. You should give something back to society. Few years, life on the bench was quite lonely. For 4.5 years, I was the only woman on the bench and the junior most.
In the Calcutta High Court?
In the Calcutta High Court. You know.
And so who would you socialize with, and who would you share your, I don't know, work-related or professional
things I used to do on my own. Only for 2 months I was on the division bench. After that I was put on the single bench. But in those days, we had cubicles. And a group of service judges, they used to get together in the chamber next to mine and have a chat amongst themselves. And in any case, the person who was in that chamber, he was so loud that my stenographer would probably be taking his notes, his dictation. And so one day I just barged in and I said, I can't work there. You all are having a wonderful time. I'm joining you all. And they were very happy because at that time, those who were elevated from the bar, they used to be a little uppity about those who were elevated from service and had 2 to 3 years left. So since I had gone on my own and I used to chat with them, they were also very happy and they accepted me. Brought to Delhi to be made the Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. That was the decision of the collegium, that if Rohini, who was the Chief Justice of Delhi High Court, if she moved up, or in any case, she was due to retire in April 2017, then I would take over. But 2 months before that, one day I had come to Calcutta for a funeral. And just when I came out, there was a phone call. I'm the Chief Justice's secretary. And he didn't exactly sound like Rohini's secretary, whose voice I knew. It was Justice Keher requesting me if I would go to Madras. And I readily agreed. I gave my consent immediately. After all, when I accepted elevation, I gave an undertaking that I would serve anywhere in the country. In Delhi, I was accepted very well. I felt very happy on my last day in Delhi High Court. I didn't know it was my last day in Delhi High Court because I'm told that the President of India had objected. He said that if you were going to send her to Madras High Court, then why did you bring her to Delhi? You could have sent her to Madras High Court straight from
Calcutta.
And then ultimately I had given my consent. So I also felt very nice when I went to Madras High Court, because all over India, the newspapers carried the headlines that 4 high courts were being headed by women. Justice Manjula Chellur was the Chief Justice of Bombay High Court. Justice Rohini was the Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. I became the Chief Justice of Madras High Court. And Justice Nishita Matre was the acting Chief Justice of Calcutta High Court. All the women who've come to the Supreme Court, or even if you take men and women together, barring a few like Justice Chandrachud and Justice Khanwilkar, I had a tenure of about 16 and a half years in constitutional courts when I came to the Supreme Court. So my elevation to the Supreme Court was late. I didn't get any benefit of being a woman.
Yes.
Because my All India seniority, I was the senior most non-Bombay judge in the country when I came. I was the senior most from Calcutta. I was the only judge from Calcutta High Court. Before that, Calcutta High Court was... there was no one from Calcutta High Court for about 15 months. And they didn't really have anything against me. I managed Madras High Court all right. But yes, some discrimination I have felt. Unless you're a very assertive kind, you tend to get a little cornered. They are condescending. They are nice with you. They are courteous with you. Accepting you as an equal is okay, but if they feel that there is absolute equality, but not with everyone. I sat with Justice Bopanna.
Who's from Karnataka?
Yeah, gentleman. I used to rely on him heavily. If I had had a little more time, I would possibly have looked him up.
And
No. What I felt was so much emphasis was being put on she's come as the third woman. It was made to sound as if I went there because I was a woman. But I don't think that I got any benefit on that account. And I also tell everyone, don't expect any benefit. If you get any benefit, it's fine. But compete. And first of all, I've always said, when it comes to discrimination against women, there are two forms of discrimination. One is deliberate discrimination, and the other is discrimination which may not be deliberate. Treating the woman differently because of your innate belief. That is the mindset. So there has to be a change in the mindset, both of men and women, because many women are themselves a little inconfident, hesitant. If the child is not doing well in studies, they take the guilt on themselves. They start feeling guilty. You have to bring up girls and boys as complete equals. Give them equal education. Give them equal opportunity. And then leave it to them. I'm not saying that it is absolutely necessary for all women to work. My mother didn't work, but she motivated me. She taught me. I owe much of what I am today to her. But give her the choice. It should not be something which should be imposed on her. As more and more women practice, you'll get more women from whom you can select judges. When there are more High Court judges, then you will be able to select more women to the Supreme Court. So at the base level, you have to increase the appointments, and for that, the selectors should keep their eyes and ears open. They should pick out the correct candidates. As far as women is concerned, because the legal profession, it's a business. They are service providers. You are expected to provide service of good quality within a short time. In case of many women, because of socio-economic reasons, they take time off when they get married. They take maternity leave. They take childcare leave. Now, if your shop is closed, then your customer will go to somebody else. And once he goes to somebody else, he may not come back to you at all. He may be quite happy with that other person. And it may take you quite a bit of time
to reach that level of
reach that
practice.
level again. So they should at least have some income relaxation and some relaxation for women at the
High Court level.
At the High Court level, if they are otherwise good, if they are well qualified. Now, someone who has taken 10 years off, how will she compete with someone who has
Who has had a
always been
20-year
there.
practice?
I had a junior, and I consider her one of the best juniors that I've had. Now, when she was getting married, she was told to join a firm. Initially, she joined a firm. She didn't like it there. Then she wanted to come back. Within 1 year, she got one kid. In the next year, she got another kid. After about 2 years, when she decided to come, the first kid got hospitalized. So her husband, who was in the legal profession, he was regularly coming to court and attending to hospital as well, except for the first few days when the child was serious. But the mother had to stay in the hospital for as long as the child was in the hospital. So she lost out on the time. And then solicitors and clients started thinking that she was not serious, because on and off, she was staying away from the profession. These are problems which women face.
Could there be some relaxation of certain
There should
criteria?
be
For example,
relaxation. There was no relaxation at all. In one case from Calcutta, I think there was some relaxation because she didn't have a very high income. But she did get appointed. But by and large, in our time, that taxable income had to be 350,000.
no, in many
Now it has
cases,
gone up.
in many cases, we see where the income criteria or the practice criteria, whatever criteria may be, if as you're saying, in many cases, women do need the criteria relaxed. Should there not be, you feel? I mean, I'm asking you,
There should also be a little bit of age relaxation.
age relaxation, to ensure that we have certain numbers of women. I mean, even if, would you agree that the courts should have some aim in mind to say that we want at least 30 or 40% of judges to be women?
Definitely, you can't. If women constitute about 50% of the population, you can't leave them out.
Yes.
You have to have an inclusive judiciary. There has to be diversity in the judiciary, and not just women of a particular group or class. Women from the lower strata of society, women from the oppressed classes.
Yes. Yes.
You can't have the kind of reservation in the judiciary as you have elsewhere. Let us say reservation of constituencies and all that. That is because the judiciary, it's the guardian of the constitution. It is deciding important constitutional cases. So you also have to see that those who are appointed are competent to be appointed. You don't appoint them only because they are a woman. I am talking about making some relaxation in income criteria and other things. But when the person is otherwise good, competent, capable, but if you say we should have 50%, then in order to fill up that 50%, or if you say 30%, in order to fill up that 30%, you may be constrained to appoint persons who may not be able to deliver the goods, who may not be able to take the load in the Supreme Court. So these are things.
I think.
But you have to keep your eyes and ears open. There are many women who retire out.
No,
As you mentioned a little while ago, because they get elevated at a late age. So I don't see any reason why some relaxation should not be made
yes.
to bring them in deviation from the seniority norm.
Yes.
And appointment to the Supreme Court is not by seniority, because it's not a promotion. It's a selection and an appointment. It's a selection, other things being equal. Uh, the seniority is taken into account. The only thing, because there are no definite rules in this regard. Now, let us say, when I was chairing the Calcutta High Court Legal Services Committee, initially there used to be complaints that junior lawyers, incompetent lawyers are engaged in the panel. They are impaneled. And people were a little wary about the legal services. What I used to do was, I would see a young lawyer doing well. I would just say, look, will you do me a favor? Get taken aback. What favor is the judge asking for? I would say, I know your fees is higher, but we'll pay your fees. Please empanel with the legal aid and do some matters. We will pay you your fees, maybe you will get a little less. Like that, perhaps the judges can be a little more proactive to request public sector undertakings, the state, the center, to ensure that women are impaneled
on their panels.
Because otherwise it becomes very difficult. The private litigant who comes, he will want to go to the best lawyer. He is not interested in gender parity or gender equality.
And women will not get the chance to hone their skills unless they get a lot of work.
That's right.
And
Where once they get the work, they'll be able to
Yes.
prove their skill.